I was standing on a balcony in San Diego, watching the sunrise. The sky was a vast, clear canvas, except for one small, solitary cloud resting atop a distant mountain peak to the east. It was an oddity, a single puff of uncertainty in an otherwise perfect morning, and it totally held my gaze. I found myself thinking about that inner climb we all make, that constant striving to reach a place of certainty, of inner peace, to reach that proverbial summit. That image resonated with a recurring theme I've heard in our creative workshops at Voices. So many choir members describe life's challenges as navigating a dense fog, a place where direction is lost and the path ahead is obscured. You can't see what's coming at you. And what struck me time and time again is this instant, almost instinctive support that emerges whenever someone shares that feeling of being lost in the fog. In this community, we find vulnerability met with open arms. Our community is a haven, a space where barriers dissolve and genuine support flourishes. Here, shame around being lost in the fog melts away, replaced by the warmth of shared experience. Here, you find outstretched hands, choir members meeting eyes, sharing stories of their own journeys through uncertainty. And some days, we simply sit in the fog together. Here, we remind each other that the fog may not be as scary as we sometimes think it is, that there's something to move through, to learn about ourselves and the world, that there's something on the other side. We remind each other that the fog isn't a place of terrifying isolation, but a path we navigate together. So that makes me question this whole idea of the summit. We're so often told it's a solitary achievement, a peak of personal perfection. But looking at that cloud, listening to the choir and their shared stories, I realized something else. Maybe the climb isn't about some distant, isolated peak at all. Maybe it's about climbing into connection, finding our footing in the shared landscape of our lives, and maybe reaching the summit isn't about some final, flawless state, but about practicing grace for every step, every stumble, every detour. Because the truth is, the fog is always swirling, and the real victory lies in recognizing those moments when, even amidst the haze, you've already arrived. You just have to trust that the view will reveal itself. And man, will it be breathtaking. Welcome. This is Sounds of the Sidewalk, a podcast sharing the stories of the individual choir members and artists of Voices of Our City, a nonprofit using music and the arts to support and connect with people impacted by homelessness. Little secret, if you'd like to come check us out, come sit with us, come be with us, and even sing with this award-winning choir, check out the show notes. My name is Shairi, and it is my honor to kick off this episode. Today, we meet Caramia as we explore the sounds of grace.
You're listening to
Sounds
of the Sidewalk.
Welcome to Sounds of the Sidewalk. Today we have
Mia, my name's Naylenie. We also have a special guest, two special guests actually. One of them you might recognize from our other episodes, but for the first time ever, she's going to be with us in our interview. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Shairi.
And my name is Caramia.
and I am your host Enrique.
A little bit more information about who you are, Caramia, so the listeners know.
Oh my goodness. So I've been singing since I'm going to start off right there. I've been singing since I was like 3 years old. And I remember I had all the Disney sing-along videos, and I just love singing. I've been singing forever. And there was this one time where I was really depressed, and I was just like, oh, do you think I'll go to heaven? Because I was really sad. And I was talking to my friend, and he was like, well, I don't see why not. And I looked at him, and I was in this computer chair, and I spinned around, and I was like, well, I better go to heaven. I'm part of the choir. And I was just writing down a bunch of stuff that I wanted to happen for the world. Like, that's the only reason why I was depressed, because of the things that I was seeing around in the world, and it was just really sad. I was in LA at the time, so it was kind of it was kind of weird for me. And but then I came back to San Diego, and I was at the Alpha Project, and this lady, she was getting these prom dresses, and I think she just kept talking about how I'm going to be at the concert for the choir, and I was like, oh, cool. And then she's like, oh, do you sing? Maybe you could come. Anyone's welcome. But at the time I was still really depressed, and I did not want to go. And it wasn't until you guys had the taco party at the Alpha Project. Steph was like having a band. There was live music, and it was all you can eat tacos. And I was like, okay, tacos, I'll go. And then they invited us, but I still wasn't really like ready to go anywhere. And I was still really sad in my head. And then the girl that was wearing like the prom dresses at the shelter, she was like smoking a cigarette, and I came outside and started talking to them, and she was like, so you could sing, why don't you sing for us? And I sang, and everybody in the tent came outside, and they were like, that's you could sing, oh my gosh. And she was like, God dang, I'm gonna bring you with me, because she had a country accent. She's like, I'm gonna be your manager. She brought me to Living Waters Church. So ever since then, I walked in, and I was just like, this place is great, and because I love to sing. And around the time that I was really depressed, I didn't want to sing. I didn't want to do anything. I think, what was it? I had a friend that I was in a group. I was in a rap group when I was 21. It's on SoundCloud, and the guy ended up passing away at his wife's baby shower.
Oh.
Yeah, he had a brain aneurysm. It was really super sad. He died, and so I was really close to that person, and that was like the only person that I've ever actually like lost that was like close to me that I knew like that. And so it kind of bothered me. I was like, no, I don't want to sing, because everybody was just like, oh, you want to join my group? You want to join my group? And I was like, what am I, fresh meat? No. I ended up leaving Oregon and disconnecting from all those people, and just being here and singing for the choir. Like, it's been a really good experience for me. And I think I've been here since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I met you. So I've been here, it's been a little over 2 years, and your voice definitely struck a chord. Also, just getting to know you over the last 2 years, fairly recently, in the storytelling workshop, when you share your poetry specifically, your work deeply resonates with me. And I feel like there are so many themes of just hope and grace just trickled in throughout all of your poetry. And I'm kind of curious, like, when we think about things like grace, like these themes that come up in your work, like, how would you define grace for yourself?
To define grace for myself would be patience, understanding, compassionate understanding, not only for others, but for myself. There's like several different keys that we have with having grace, and it's more of like being thankful and just giving yourself some grace. To be graceful is to get graced.
It's funny because I feel like sometimes, let me know if this resonates with anybody, but there are times when I feel like I'm going through something, I'm trying to find my way out of it. And, how I would kind of shape the word grace for myself. And you started to talk about it, creating space, right? Like space between the person that you are trying to grow into and where you are in that current moment. And I want grace from people around me to recognize that I'm trying my best to grow into the person that I know that I can be. And without that grace, I feel like I'm kind of, just fumble through things. And there are times when we don't always get grace from other people. We have to find it within ourselves and have to create that space for ourselves to grow, that, that acceptance of, just we are where we are and it's all okay and it's perfect. Like we are right where we're supposed to be. And it's just a part of our natural human experience. Yeah.
That's very powerful.
Yeah. Like that we have inherent wisdom. There's things inside of us that just know.
Yeah, for me, grace, it means unmerited or undeserved favor. So I look at it as, sometimes we judge ourselves and we feel like we're not good enough or we're not this or we're not that. And grace is allowing that favor for yourself, like that something that you might not feel you deserve it because of who you believe or who you think you are, but you give yourself that grace, and there's power in it. There's power in giving yourself grace, but um, yeah, I connect to that because, like, for me, when I went away to prison and I was found suitable, that's like grace to me, right? I don't really deserve it. I didn't, but it was given to me. It's a gift, it's something that's given to you, and it's like, and man, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that they were gracious to me, So sometimes, even in our judgment of others, we might look at somebody different or maybe even look down on them or whatever the case might be. But, you got to have grace with people. You have to allow that grace. Like, even if you think they don't deserve it, like, you should give them that grace and that help or whatever it is that's going to get that person back into a healthy mind state or a healthy life. And I think that's the way I see grace, like working, and it's just about being favorable towards people, like giving them that gift of grace. Like they might, and it's not so much that I don't believe you deserve it. The person that's receiving the grace might not believe they deserve it. And when you give them that gift of grace, like of favor, of help, of, their time of need, you're helping, giving them a helping hand. And they're like, whoa, like, why is this person even helping me? That's like how I see grace working, in a way.
I see it a little bit along the same lines, but a little bit differently. Because when I think about grace, like this morning when you guys were asking me about it, I had to think about it. Because for me, I kind of translates into just having elegance, compassion, and just being understanding. And that for me, it's not something that you have to do. It's not something that you really notice, but it's something that's underlying, that the person, they'll do it without asking for anything in return. They're not doing it for them. They're not doing it for you. It's just how they are. That's how I see it. Because I don't know. It's very powerful what you guys have been saying. I connect to each one of them, but I feel like in a different way. I don't know.
When I meet somebody, I always try to make a difference in their life in a good way because they're always going to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to remember the bad things. Yeah. So I try to avoid bad things when I meet people. And that's what every human being should do in this life, is to make a difference, impact others in a good way.
For me, I think that with grace, like, I think I had never thought about it so much as today. And I think that I do it unconsciously so much because of the people that haven't given me grace before, or people that haven't been compassionate. Yes. That I look at things and I say, you know what? I don't want to be that way. I don't want to treat others the same way that I've been treated. That's why sometimes I'll go out of my way, even if the person appreciates it or not. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not doing it for them to appreciate it. I'm just doing it because it's the right thing to do. And that's the same way I would like to be treated. Because I do live by the principle of, I don't like to do anything to others that I wouldn't like them to do to me.
So the thing that I do whenever whenever I achieve something, like how you just realize consciously that this is works for you, this is how it is, I write it down. And when I write down the good things, I have those, I have this, I have something, and then that gives me purpose. And then when I forget about it, I go back to it.
The tools.
Inner wisdom, yeah.
The tools.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
So how does grace play out in the moments when you're going through depression and all these negative thoughts are attacking you? How do you feel grace works for you? Like, how do you battle that? For example, for me, like I used to wake up in a cell, 22 years of waking up in a cell, I could touch the walls next to me when I would wake up, and you could get lost in the thought, like, I'm never getting out of here. Right. And that can be my thought every day waking up, like, I'm never getting out of here. I'm never getting out of here. And I've seen people like they've gone through time and they lose their mind because they're giving into this thought that's powerful. Like if you give into that thought, then you're basically being imprisoned by your own thought. So I would be like, nah, like I wouldn't stay in that mind state. I just didn't let those thoughts trap me.
I forgot what they call that. I was literally just talking to one of my peer support counselors about this. Intrusive thoughts. Is that what you're trying to call it? Yeah, intrusive thoughts. And it's it's a daily thing to have intrusive thoughts, but you just need to know that that's something you have control, you have power over your response. And that is the number one key for keeping grace.
Sometimes we think that we can just power through it. Like if, I can just show up and I can just deny these intrusive thoughts and I can just decide to choose a better thought. But sometimes it is really, really hard to do that. And so I think I think that you giving the example of writing these moments of positive thoughts or moments of joy every morning is just another tool, like you guys were talking about. I'm kind of curious, like, what are other ways that you have seen, like, that you have found creative ways?
Oh, for myself?
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, naps. There is just so many ways you can nap. And and whether it's just like close your eyes and just take a deep breath, do some box breathing, ground yourself, go do something that you like. There was a couple times where I've been dealing with major super depression and I was just like on a rooftop in my bikini, just like sad because I didn't have anybody with me. I don't have anyone with me here. So like I would think about things that I don't have instead of appreciate the things that I have. And then being at a shelter when I was in Alpha Project, it was literally like I couldn't think about any of those things that were happening around there. I had to just get away from that. And I didn't really make any plans. It wasn't that like I basically got up, took care of myself first, didn't really think about any of that. If any of those thoughts came up, I would be like, no. I would just say no, 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 no. Not for me, not for me. And I would just go do something. I was doing really good when I was in Alpha Project and I was going to the gym, and it was getting really hard for me because people started getting really jealous. And people would tell me, oh, you don't look homeless. But I didn't really know that homeless had a look. But I did. I always had to be patient with myself and just be patient with others because I keep telling myself that there are better things ahead. And I can't, and I won't ever give up on myself because I love myself that much. But then when I like read like posts like you have to keep loving yourself, I don't know like why it shows up or why or what, because I'm like, wait, I am loving myself. What's happening?
Well, it shows, and that's what I was gonna say, because with grace comes a lot of self-love. If you don't have that self-love, you're not gonna give yourself that compassion and grace to be able to say, you know what? Yeah, I am struggling right now and I need the help. I need to seek out the help. You need to, have that, even if it's a little bit of self-love, transforms into hope. And then from hope, and turns into action. But that's how it starts out.
I think starting it out with your confidence building your confidence can help build your self-love. We all benefit with love in some sort of way, whether it's from somebody, whether it's from ourselves. It's the most powerful thing out there.
Yeah.
Feeling like we deserve it. It's interesting you brought up confidence. I remember we had a conversation not too long ago about like how do we grow confidence in ourselves? We can't just acquire it. We have to do something to get it. And that's like,
well, they go hand in hand too. Like, I will never forget a quote from the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think it was like the very first book I read when I was young. And there's a line there that says, we accept the love that we think we deserve. But we're not accepting the one that we deserve. It's what we think maybe it's our confidence is not up, our self-love, but they all go hand in hand. But once you start building both of those up, we don't accept less. And that's the way it should be. It's a work in progress every day.
Nap number 1. So what other you write poetry, you paint, you sing. How does your creativity help you to stay graceful? Does creativity play a part in any of your journey?
Well, the one thing about being an artist is having the hope that somebody would like your art. And so I guess it just has to be with finding something that you're good at and that's appealing to other people.
what I think is really amazing about your work is that, it's I would phrase it in a way that's like, it's not just that we like your work because we do, it's that it connects because it's really authentic and vulnerable and honest and it resonates and you are speaking to people that really need to hear your hope and your light to help people keep taking steps forward. And that's what your work does.
Yeah. Well, I try to be friends with everybody, even bugs.
But even when you sing, I feel like it's almost like if you had like a little spotlight with you just moving around. Because it's funny that I don't know, I imagine like a spotlight around you because you light up. Every time I've seen you sing, and when you're singing solo, you literally light up and you light up the room around you. And I say this because that was my first impression of voices, was like with you, because on my first day, it was the concert for World Homelessness Day, and you. Mhm.
I have a picture of you
And
today.
yeah, you had a solo, I remember, and it felt like you had like a light on you, like it just felt so hopeful. It felt great. It just felt like this is a place I needed to be. And thinking back to it, you were like one of the people that I remember the most because you had a solo, and I just remember meeting you that first day. And it's beautiful to see how much you can translate and like just give to others without saying anything directly to them. That how much you give without realizing how much you
I
give to
didn't
others.
even realize that I do that. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
But it literally is
Yeah.
exactly what, I think what we've been talking about is, through your creativity, through your authentic creativity, you are a light for people.
A guide.
Yes. Sometimes sometimes, actions are way louder than words. And I that's how I feel. Eh, You don't have to say something directly. It doesn't even have to be about, we don't even have to be talking about anything serious, but it's just the way you conduct yourself or the way that you talk to others, or it's just the little things that you notice. And I can really appreciate that from you. I can tell. I could tell just by the way you handle yourself that you're very compassionate and that you've done a lot of work on yourself to get to the point that you're at.
So I'm the fifth out of 8 kids. So
Big family.
I've had a lot of practice.
Do you
with
keep in touch with all your family members?
some of them.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them. Some of them are really mean. I have 3 older stepsisters, 1 stepbrother. Yeah, most of us don't have the same father. And I never even got to meet my dad. So I spent a lot of time by myself. And in high school, I wasn't, I was very bullied. And even then, I wasn't really like into being rude to anyone or anything. And I just kept, it was because my mom raised me religiously, and she would always say, treat others how you would want to be treated. And so that's what I went by. Treat others how you would like to be treated. And that's how I had my compassion. So I've been practicing compassion my whole life.
I have a very similar, there's so many parallels to our lives. I also grew up in a very, the religious household that I grew up in was a controlling and oppressive, so I had a negative first impression of religion. However, some of those values and lessons really carried over. And later on in my life, I realized that there is levels of compassion, like I guess how you would define it, and like being compassionate and accepting towards other people. There's a limit to it.
Well, it's when you switch it. I mean, you're having compassion for others, but there comes a point where you have to have the same compassion for yourself to say, you know what? It's enough. Like, I can't give any more of my energy to this. I can't keep on getting disrespected, because it gets to a point where that compassion, I'm so sorry, but it has to go right back into you.
I was going to say something along that line, because if I can't love myself, right? I'm in addiction. I'm in anger. I'm in bitterness. I'm in unforgiveness, right? And I want to treat others like I treat myself, then that, right? But if you heal, right? I heard Danny Glover say one time, be the change you want to see in society, right? You be the change, right? And I think by imparting grace and imparting hope, I have to have that given to me first, right? I have to receive those gifts. And then now if I'm able to love myself and if I'm able to be compassionate, then I can treat others the same, which in a spiritual sense, like when your mom was telling you spiritually, that's what it's kind of referring to, like, right? Because if I'm still lost in whatever it is that keeps me in that darkness, then I can't love others as I love myself. But if I'm able to heal from this and break out of that and come into a place where there's light, then I can offer that to you, right? And I can treat you with love and I can treat you with respect, because I've done that for myself, or I've worked at, or somebody has given me those gifts, right? So I think that's why I say sometimes when you give grace to others, when you show favor freely to others, and they're like, I'm not trying to hear that right now. Like, get out of here with all that stuff, right? That's cool. Like, they're on their journey too, and they're not ready for that. And I have to respect that, because if I love myself and I know myself and I respect I know that there's a journey and it's a process. So I have to just even though it might hurt me, to see them in that state, I have to respect, like, hey, he's not ready for it, right? But there's gonna be people that are ready, and that's where you keep
Yeah.
imparting that love and that
So that
grace.
unconditional love that I've practiced most of my life, loving others. And, I am a mother. I have 3 children. And I did also work in a foster home with kids with autism and adults with autism. So like I have like a lot of practice of interacting with other human beings, growing up in a big family. Um, and you know, giving myself the grace throughout the years and knowing when to knowing when somebody is in a fragile state to not accept information from me. um Being able to, I mean, we all have a form of communication and body language, and so um if somebody's not resonating with you, then there's always going to be somebody else that will resonate with you. And um and I feel like just walking in a room and knowing that there's somebody that's going to have eye contact with you, you could smile at them.
Mm-hmm.
And because I've realized walking down 12th and Imperial, yeah, if I didn't have any compassion towards human beings, I would have been terrified, like thinking like, oh, being racist or something like that, what somebody normally wouldn't be doing. But I could go down an alley and not be afraid of somebody, knowing that, you know, that I can look them in the eye. If they're going to smile, they're going to give me that signal. If it's a friendly thing, then yeah. So, just not being afraid of anything. It's kind of strange how I came about being fearless by being careless. And so like I had to experience these things. And and that's why I say you have to let go of certain individuals that aren't taking your advice. They're always going to remember, they're going to learn their lesson, and they're going to remember, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That's how we grow. We grow and we learn. Just recently I had like really bad trauma happen. So like my mind with people, I felt was a little bit more intrusive when I tried to give my advice. So like with you saying with about people who are like, oh no, that don't stay away from me or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, I was like, what? I'm good at this stuff. Where's Caramia? And I had to like sit there with myself, and I started getting sad because I was like, I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like myself. And this was because I was literally around people who didn't appreciate me. And I wasn't appreciating myself. My confidence was low. And so I just made promises to myself to always be there for myself, put myself first.
Cool. Well, I really want to thank you for coming and doing this interview.
But before we leave, we would like to hear from you if you have any piece of advice for our listeners. Any sort of words of inspiration that you would have for everybody that's listening to this.
When you feel like it's hard to give up, don't give up.
Thank you for coming in, being authentic in this space and sharing with us.
Yeah, I loved it.
Thank you. Pretty much done. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Sounds of the Sidewalk. Woo!
Thank you so much. You need to know that just by listening to this episode, you're not only taking an active role in supporting this choir, but this also makes you a part of our community. Just by listening, you are elevating the voices that make up our family here. So thank you for sharing this time with us. Special thank you to Caramia. If you'd like to hear her incredible singing voice in person, come visit us for open rehearsal or one of our upcoming shows. Details are in the show notes or on our website. We're also gearing up to record our first live album of original music with lyrics written by the choir. Side note, it's such a gift to witness their collaborative songwriting process. It's pretty rad. Thank you to the Conrad Prebys Foundation for your support and partnership. Sincerely, thank you. And for individual donors that make this connection possible. We could not do this without you. Thank you. Until next time, I'd like to share a little line from a play we're writing together in one of our workshops. We're here to take the noise of life and make music with it. Thank you for listening to Sounds of the Sidewalk, where we walk each other home, one episode at a time.